Our role is to help facilitate as many of those opportunities as possible, and also to help young people realize that no matter what their background is, there can be a fit in this world for them. And ultimately, our vision is that every year, 1 million young Americans are doing a service year. Right now, as I mentioned, we have about 65,000 service year positions. That includes everything from AmeriCorps to Peace Corps to Youth Build to small nonprofits across the country who may have 1 or 2 members serving in their communities. And by 2019, we hope to have 100,000 service year positions, and really in an effort to lay the groundwork to 250,000 young people serving every year within a decade. And all of that will help us reach our mission of 1 million young people doing a year of service. I should also mention that I tend to speak fairly quickly, so if folks have questions throughout the webinar, do feel free to share that in the chat box, and happy to pause and answer those questions. We'll also have plenty of time at the end for folks to ask as well. And I think Virtus would say the same. If you have questions about membership in TDC, please feel free to include those as well, and we'll get to those at the end. As I mentioned, there's no right or wrong time to be able to do a service year. What might be right for me or for you may not be right for your students or your son or daughter who is thinking about these sorts of opportunities. It can be seen as I mentioned, a gap year or as a transition between colleges. Perhaps you have someone who has entered the workforce, has then decided to switch careers, attend community college, and is looking for a new career path. A service year can be a good way to be able to test that out in a low risk way, but also in a way that will allow them to be paid. Whereas for other students, this can be one of their very first full-time paid positions. But in all of these instances, no matter when they take place, it's a chance to give young people an opportunity to develop leadership and professional skills while they're making a difference in their communities. And what I would love to see, and I think community colleges can be a really important partner in this effort, is keeping the students and the young people in their communities. They are the assets of those communities, and they know them best. And so if there are ways that we can continue to leverage those skills and experiences of our students and the communities where they're from, I think that will be a really great step in helping to strengthen both those communities and our democracy as a whole. And on that note, doing a year of service really starts to pave the way for long-term civic and community engagement. The sooner they get started in these efforts, the longer they'll be able to draw upon those experiences and know what a difference they can make. So that's a whole lot of information I've shared with you. I want to set the stage a little bit to help us think about where all of these different opportunities take place. We work not only with nonprofits, but faith communities, K-12 schools, public agencies, and higher education. So if you want to click through the different slides, yep, there we go. So you'll see lots of different examples here. Some you are probably familiar with, perhaps others you may be less so, but you'll see various levels of scale here. You'll see entities like AmeriCorps and City Year and Red Cross. Those are all entities that we're probably all really familiar with, but then you might have some smaller programs as well. One of the programs, since I'm chatting with community college folks here today, is to talk a little bit about what's happening at Miami-Dade College and also Blue Ridge Community College in Virginia. So for those of you who are familiar with the population at Miami-Dade, you may know that they have, unfortunately, a pretty large population of foster youth. And they were seeing foster youth entering Miami-Dade College and perhaps not feeling like they had all of the resources and supports to be able to be successful at Miami-Dade College. And so with the help of Service Year Alliance, they've created a peer-to-peer mentoring program where students who have aged out of the foster care system and are attending Miami-Dade will be able to provide peer support for new students at Miami-Dade who have also just recently left or aged out of the foster care system. So that program is also in partnership with their One Stop program and has been going on now for, I believe, 3 or 4 years. And we were really excited to highlight that program and all the great work they're doing in an upcoming video with NationsWell. So not finished yet, unfortunately. Some Mother Nature got in the way of finalizing that video, so we're a bit delayed, but definitely look forward to sharing that video and more information about Miami-Dade with you all soon. And the other program I would highlight is happening close to us here in Virginia at Blue Ridge Community College. They also took the model that Miami-Dade is doing, but the population is a little bit different. So it's not focused on foster youth, but it is focused on at-risk students and a similar peer-to-peer mentoring program. They are in their first year, or I guess ending their first year now, and I've had the privilege of following along on their blogs, and it's a really powerful story that they are weaving. And so look forward to this time next year having more examples from community colleges to be able to share, and hopefully some of that will come from you guys who are on the phone today. Service year opportunities are available all across the country. We certainly have some gaps, particularly in the Midwest, that we need to fill, and then kind of the northern borders of our country. But they are available all across the country. We're doing our best to make sure that there are hundreds and hundreds of more dots along the way. I should mention should have mentioned in my introduction that we have a few different focus areas. Not only are we working to increase awareness, and that's part of the purpose of our time together this afternoon, but also looking to grow the number of opportunities. So if you are currently working with community partners or civic agencies whom you think might be a good fit for this work, please feel free to reach out to me or to Virtus, and we'll connect you with the right folks. We certainly don't have all the answers over here and really depend on all of you who are on the ground working with students and working with communities to help us be successful in this. There are a couple different ways that we work with colleges and universities. One is to be able to recognize the value of a service year, either through credit or a special scholarship. So when I am talking to colleges, I often bring up a term, credit for prior learning, which I feel folks are probably pretty familiar with already. If you have a student who perhaps has completed a year with Youth Build and is entering your institution, perhaps you're able to work out an agreement where they're able to receive credit for that experience. And that can be for any program. I'm just using Youth Build as an example. And that will help them get one step further to graduation. So we're really excited when we're able to kind of document the learning that goes on in a year of service, whether that be through credit or credentials, digital badges, but whatever term you want to use. We really believe that important learning takes place in a year of service and really want to work with colleges and universities to be able to recognize that. Additionally, you are all working directly with students and probably seeing students who could benefit from a service year. So what can we do at Service Year Alliance to be able to equip faculty and student affairs practitioners, career services to be able to feel comfortable sharing these opportunities with students and feeling like they have the resources that they need. And the last one I'll highlight there is the fourth bullet, which is to develop partnerships to offer a service year program. I spoke about that a little bit. Sometimes those partnerships emanate directly from the college or university. There are credit-bearing opportunities, there are non-credit-bearing opportunities as well, all in an effort to make sure that students are being able to really clearly articulate the learning and being able to, when they're in an interview or when they're interviewing for a four-year institution and eventually grad school, are they able to effectively talk about the skills that they've learned in their year of service and how that will translate to their next step. And that's a really good segue to, okay, you now have all of this information. It might sound good in practice, but what does it really mean for our students? I think there's often the misperception that if you're really involved with service in college, that you are interested in public service or you want a job that has some sort of service orientation. That may very well be true. A lot of students certainly go on to those fields. But service year alums also go on to fields in technology, in medicine, in law, education, all sorts of things, because the soft skills and the hard skills that are learned in a year of service are translated to all sorts of fields. It's also an opportunity to acquire 21st century skills. I know that's a really popular buzzword that everyone is using. But we talk a lot about grit in our office and how when you're in a year of service, a lot of things might not be able to be predicted, and you have to be really flexible and being able to operate sometimes without a lot of guidance. And that means that you are developing critical thinking and creativity skills. You're able to communicate and collaborate with others. And you also are hopefully developing a cultural competency that you may not have had. It's that building bridges work that I mentioned before, interacting with folks who may be a little bit different from you. And then being able to be, as I mentioned, motivated, flexible, focus on outcomes. 77% of CEOs are worried that their skill shortage are going to center around those soft skills. And they say that those are the ones that are the hardest both to quantify and to identify in their candidates. And so we've been doing a lot of work to pull out that learning that happens in a service year. We're also working with a coalition of over 500 employers that are calling themselves employers of national service. And this is a group of employers, everyone from Disney to Comcast to Delta to everything in between, that say they will recognize a year of service in their hiring processes, whether that's on their website, in their recruitment materials, in their career fairs. They have understood and appreciate the skills and knowledge and background of national service members and will look for that in their hiring processes. And that's really important for us because research has shown that less than half, so about 45% of students, say they feel positively about their college and career readiness. So less than 45%. That's not necessarily where we want to be, and national service is one of the things that we can do for that. Next slide, please, sir. So our tagline, you see it on our slides, right? What does that mean? We say that a better you means that a service year provides a pathway to a career by developing those 21st century skills that we mentioned. It has the opportunity to increase both higher education access and to completion. For students who are thinking about college, the price tag can be a little scary. I know it was for me. It's also frustrating when you're thinking about other commitments you have. You have job commitments, you have family commitments, and other things. And so a year of service is one of those critical tools because not only does it provide a paycheck, but again, in some cases, it also provides credit. You also, when completing an AmeriCorps service year, you are able to earn an education benefit. So you can put that, I think it's about $5,500 right now. You can put that amount towards student loans or towards future education. So that's an additional way to help increase access to higher ed. Certainly also expands your social networks, builds independence and confidence and leadership, and helps you to also clarify your goals. And one of the reasons that I like to partner with TDC and Campus Compact, I see a couple of Campus Compact folks on the line, which is great, is it really does work to strengthen our democracy. I've mentioned this already, helps to unite Americans of all different backgrounds, builds on a strong foundation of citizenship and civic engagement that research has shown continues far, far beyond when those individuals serve. And then, of course, as we've discussed, builds those essential 21st century skills. I've mentioned the Eli Siegel Education Award. That's at approximately $5,500 available if a student has done a year through AmeriCorps. Students are also able to receive loan forbearance on qualifying student loans. In some cases, there is relocation assistance, health benefits, housing assistance, in some cases, reduced tuition. And that can be important if students are being awarded that credit for prior learning that I mentioned. And in some cases, they can also receive childcare benefits as well. So how can we help students find a year of service? One of the tools that we have is called serviceyear.org. And this is a place where we have all of the listings together in one place. For those of you who may have tried to navigate AmeriCorps' website before, we have pulled, that still exists, but we have taken those opportunities and are also on serviceyear.org. You can spend lots of time on our website. Happy to help you through that. And it's a matching platform. Students can go in, identify perhaps where they'd like to serve or what area of service they'd like to work in. Perhaps they're committed to working with veterans because they're a veteran themselves, or perhaps they want to work in education because they have a son or daughter currently going through the system and they've seen some of the challenges that our schools are facing, or perhaps they love dogs like I do and want to work with animals for their service year. Perhaps they want to work in addressing natural disasters. Whatever the focus area is, we have opportunities for that, and that list continues to grow and grow every day. We're also bringing on the Peace Corps to serviceyear.org, hopefully by the end of the year. Now, we acknowledge over here that a service year may not be the right fit for everyone, and that's okay. We still want students and practitioners and community partners to learn about the work that we're doing. And one of the ways that we're doing that, and this I think Vertus and TDC will appreciate, is a course on civic engagement and national service with Arizona State University, which will be launching in the fall. So looking forward to sharing more information with all of you soon on that. But think of that course, it's open access, it's through the edX platform and part of their Global Freshman Academy at ASU, and gives students a really important grounding in democratic and civic engagement and helps students understand how national service is part of the history of our country, how it all ties together, why we need national service, and how they can capitalize on those experiences and skills in ways for the rest of their life, whether or not they've done a year of service themselves. Again, we want folks to be able to learn about that. And we'll end now with a quick little video, assuming our technology works. Would really encourage folks again to ask any questions you might have in the chat box, and we'll leave some time at the end to be able to share that. Well, this is my fault for not testing our technology beforehand. It doesn't look like our video is working, but I think we'll be able to share back the presentation with all the folks who have signed up, and you'll be able to watch it there.
Yes, the whole PC versus Mac issue.
It happens, and that's totally fine. But want to give folks an opportunity to ask any questions they might have. If you feel like you would rather speak it to the group instead of type it, we can unmute you. I just didn't want a lot of background noise during the session. So if you have questions about service year or about hello everyone, or about TDC, let us know.
All right, so we do have one question, and by the way, hi everyone, and again, thanks for joining. Now you can see us. So there is a question from Mary Frances Archie. She's from the Community College of Allegheny County in Pennsylvania, and she asks, what is the salary for a student who participates in a service year?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's going to depend a little bit, and I know that can be a frustrating response, but it's going to depend on whether or not they are doing a year with AmeriCorps, whether they're doing a year with a smaller nonprofit. Typically, it's minimum wage. There are additional benefits, as we mentioned in that. If it is a position that is hard to fill and requires kind of specialized skills, perhaps it's a community health worker or a teacher in an urban school district, then that can be a little bit higher, but typically it's going to be about minimum wage. It'll be a little higher if it's in an urban versus rural area. So I know that's probably not the exact answer you wanted, but it depends on a few factors. If you have specific location questions, feel free to email me. Anyone can email me at jdell@serviceyear.org, and we can dig in a little bit more to that. I think we had another question.
And this is from Hoover from Glendale Community College in California. And he says, just be clear, the opportunities that students can search are all paid opportunities through the organization that is hosting the student, right? And what are what are the college's fiscal contributions? Great question.
That is. So what I didn't dive too much into, or at all perhaps, is how we put service year opportunities on the exchange, that serviceyear.org. We have a whole list of certification requirements. One of those certification requirements is that the student is paid. And that is one of the ways that we hope to open access to all students regardless of their socioeconomic status. Now, who pays the student, again, will vary. It is often the organization where the student is working. In the case of AmeriCorps, it's usually a cost share where the community organization pitches in a little bit. Perhaps the program itself is fundraising and is matching that. Perhaps there's foundation funding. So it can get, a little bit complicated, as all of our nonprofit work does, I think. But the quick answer is we do require that students get paid, or that their living expenses are taken into consideration in some way. So if a student is receiving housing and meal and room and board, there might not be an actual stipend at the end, but their living expenses are taken into consideration. And then the second part of that is, what is the college's fiscal contribution? Again, that's going to vary, and I know you guys are possibly getting frustrated by that response. If the program is emanating or hosted by the college or university, they might choose to fund it, but they might also choose to get outside funding through a foundation, through the community organizations that the students are working in. It really all depends, but there doesn't have to be any financial contribution at all if they're able to make sure that the students are paid, or that their living requirements are taken care of in some way. Those are really good questions.
Now, feel free that you can also unmute your own mic, and you can speak to us directly if you like. The one thing that I would like to add to this is that if you do have students that go through a year of service, we would want to know about it.
Yeah,
we want to know about it, and we want to recognize that. TDC does want to recognize that. Please let us know what students and what they're doing. And also, one thing that I'm getting into more and more is actually following students.
Yeah.
So after they have an example, after they have an experience, whether it's on our college, whether it's a year of service, whether it's service learning, I want to follow them years, and see what the impact is, because so that we can not really justify the work that we do, but so that we can add some data to that and say, because we all know that it's not just because it's the right thing to do, but also we've seen the direct impact, but we need to prove it sometimes. We definitely want to know if your students definitely go on there.
And they're our best source of info too, right? Yeah. Not only information coming back to us, but sharing their experiences, both the good and the bad, with other students who are thinking about these sorts of opportunities. So yes, 100%.
And one thing that I like about this is that, particularly with some of my community college students, it's great that they're getting paid to do this, and not that it's just, and not, volunteerism is great, but at the same time, I know right now I can't really volunteer that much.
Right.
So because of what's going on financially and things of that nature. Before I get to this question, can someone do a year of service and go to school at the same time?
They can. What a great question, Vertus. So I gave some examples that are embedded in community colleges where students are actively doing a year of service. They're enrolled in those campuses, and it's a really powerful way to combine those two. I kind of think about it as service, but kind of next step to service learning. If you are not enrolled full-time, you can still take classes, you can still do your year of service. There are really no kind of regulations or parameters around that. It does get a little tricky if you're talking about AmeriCorps positions. Right. As a federally funded program, the regulations are a little bit different. But yeah, especially if it's a program that is hosted at a college or university, for me, that's the ideal, but I also know that that's not feasible for everyone. Hi, Rollin. Rollin has a question. Are there examples of credit-bearing service year opportunities in community college programs? I think that's what you mean by CC. And how do these program credits transfer? So we gave two examples, both in the Miami-Dade example and the Blue Ridge Community College. And Rollin, I'll connect you with Blue Ridge folks.
Can you connect me with them too? No,
I will absolutely do that. And both of those instances,
I love my Piedmont, Virginia,
I know. This is what happens with friends. We get a little off track, but that's okay. In both of those instances, students are receiving credit. In the Miami-Dade example, I believe they're receiving 3 credits in leadership, and I'm blanking on what they're getting at Blue Ridge, but in both of those cases, they're getting credit. That's actually what we funded them to be able to do. How those credits transfer, that's going to depend on, articulation agreements with 4-year institutions. Typically, it's a gen ed requirement, which is, not the best, not the most ideal, and at least in my mind. But if you have articulation agreements with colleges with 2 and 4 year, you can kind of have a smoother path to that. The ASU example I gave is open to everyone. So whether or not you're a student, if you are Joe Smith on the street that comes across and wants to learn more about service years, you can. Our hope is that enrolled service year members take it, and those who are really thinking about a service year, what we would consider prospective core members, also take it. And for that effort, students will receive 3 ASU credits. And ASU, as folks might know, is one of the preeminent leaders in online education. And so I think those credits will be transferable pretty easily, given that they're ASU credits. But where the home institution decides to use those credits, that's also going to depend.
Yeah, I'm wondering about Miami-Dade, for example. And I'm sure that, I mean, most community colleges do have articulation agreements with a nearby four-year state college or university, or sometimes, other private universities and colleges. One thing that we're working on as Democracy Commitment is this Civic Pathways a notion, this idea of making sure that whatever students do at the community college level, that there are programs that have been identified. There are colleges that have been identified and have these articulation agreements, because more and more, especially with federal financial aid, if it's not a part of their program, if it's not transferable, then financial aid they can suffer because of that. Or suffer from graduation, from taking too many classes that don't apply to their major and don't transfer. So I think more and more that's really, really important for community college students. So the more and more we can do on that front to make sure that these credits do transfer, and that's why I like Roland's question, because that's very, very important, particularly with community colleges right now.
Yeah, and I think once we have the next federal budget, we'll have more clarity around that.
And we'll hold our breath here in DC.
Stay tuned for that. But yes, I agree with Vertus in that having articulation agreements, helping students and their next step understand where those credits can go are really important. We're doing a lot of work around badges and micro credentials. The credit piece is really, really challenging, to be totally honest. So we're thinking a lot about kind of the lighter touch version of that, which is micro credentials and badges. So yeah.
And that works more with employers.
It does.
Than academia.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
They're great so far, guys.
All right. So I mean, if there aren't any questions or any comments, who is really interested in service year? Just wave your hand if you are. I'm just joking. You don't have to do that.
We can't see all of you.
But what we're going to do is we're going to follow up this webinar with a let me see if I'm still sharing.
I'm going to follow up with a toolkit. I don't know what you're following up with.
You want to follow up with a toolkit?
I've got some toolkits for people.
Can you CC me on that?
I can.
But we're going to follow this up with everyone that has registered for this with information about service year, as well as information about the Democracy Commitment. As we continue this partnership, and maybe even explore ways that we can work directly together to make sure that community college students receive this opportunity, and also that you're supported as you venture into this. I'm a big community engagement service learning person. So, so this is an opportunity that even like when students receive that experience in a class of service learning, this can be, and especially those students that are really, really gravitating to that, to offer this as the next level, the next step.
Yeah.
And there is a question from Courtney, and I think from Norwalk Community College. I may be mistaken by that, but is the service year expected to be full-time?
Yeah.
That's a great question.
That is, and apologies that I didn't mention that earlier. So if a student is enrolled in school and taking academic courses, it's probably not realistic for them to be doing that full-time and to be doing a year of service full-time, especially if they also have perhaps another job that they're doing. So our thinking is that students need to be doing this at least 20 hours a week, with the thought process that would probably take the place of another part-time job that they might be doing. So that is our expectation. If students aren't enrolled in school, then yes, we do expect it to be full-time. And you'll see both of those types of opportunities on serviceyear.org. And that's all involved too in our certification process. We want host organizations to be really clear about what their expectations are. Most of the models that are coming from colleges and universities, it's about 20 hours a week for 9 months. So thinking of that academic year long. And another question, which I love, so thank you for this question.
Talk about next steps,
next
right?
steps. So it depends on what you want to do. If you are interested in having, a special scholarship or a credit arrangement, if you want to host a program yourself, that's a whole other thing. Happy to talk with anyone about what they're thinking, and then we can talk about next steps. I think minimally, I want everyone on this call to be able to feel comfortable talking with students about service year opportunities and directing them to serviceyear.org, where they can search for opportunities. But there's a whole menu of options. I will share that toolkit with Vertus, who will then follow up with all of you with his resources as well. And you'll see some next steps in there. But definitely spend some time on the website, get familiar with it. I think it's pretty easy to use, but we're also continuing to improve functionality every week.
So I have a question for you that's related to that. Is there a membership requirement to Service Year? Yeah. And if there's a membership requirement to Service Year, is that institutional, individual, student, faculty, and is there a cost associated with that? And we do have another question after that one.
So there is no membership fee for individuals who are searching for colleges and universities. If you are a host site, it's a little bit different, and we're rolling some of that out in 2018, so stay tuned. But absolutely free for prospective core members to be able to search for those Wonderful. Opportunities.
And Barbara from
Hey Barbara.
Hey Barbara.
Hi there.
From
Hi.
I believe is
Campus
that
Compact.
Campus Compact.
Yeah.
Southern New England. Yes, you
Love
got
Southern
it right.
England.
Right. We're everywhere.
Oh, there she is. You can hear her.
Yeah, I'm here. Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Did we
I
get
can
it
hear you
right,
now.
Barbara?
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Go ahead. I'm just looking for a response from my comment.
Okay, so her comment was that that we find that administrators and financial aid and registration can be real roadblocks, and they need one-to-one conversations from organizations like ours.
Yeah.
So I speak to like administrators, like especially presidents, provosts, deans, all the time, and when they have that reassurance, I mean, not just go to this website, because a lot of them won't take the time to do it. Some of them will. Yeah. But to have that reassurance and also to talk with us one-on-one, we will be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, Barbara, I'm happy to work with you and Matt to schedule those conversations, or if you want to email introductions, happy to follow up on that.
Right. I find that, I mean, we get sometimes support from presidents, and we'll have community service directors very interested, and then we set up meetings with financial aid and register. They don't know what's going on. I hope I hope you're not on the call, financial aid. It has nothing to do with them personally. I just don't think they get any kind of professional development in this whole field of educating students for our democracy and civic engagement. So they're really just like, I don't know what to do about this. And it takes so much time trying to get them up to speed that I think it would really be helpful to think about how can we do forums for them.
Yeah, and this isn't for that population specifically, but we're thinking on our end of doing a similar initiative that Compact is doing with community engagement professionals, but with career services professionals.
Right, yes.
Or for individuals who think they might want to work in national service programs. Is there a certification? So there's a lot we need to learn from you guys as you're moving in that. But I think that might be, a step further, which is financial aid and enrollment management.
Right, so enrollment, exactly.
Happy to chat with you and Matt and other folks about that for sure.
Thank you.
Some of that information will be in the toolkit as well, but that one-on-one is very important to really for them to understand and really, you know, kind of take a risk with
Yeah.
this.
Well, that's what it is. You know, you need someone to say, I want to try it this semester. Let's see if we can get it on a transcript. Let's see if we can transfer the credit to a four-year college. We need people to come out and say, we're going to figure this out.
Yeah.
And for colleges, and I know we're almost at time here, but for colleges, it's almost like the chicken and the egg, right? We
Yeah.
need to be brave and to do it, but they want to see what their peers are doing. And
Yes.
so, you know, we need innovative folks like those who are on the phone to be able to say, yeah, we're going to take a chance and we're going to do this because we know that it's good for our students and for our democracy. And then hopefully that will start a bigger conversation and more folks will.
Right.
So.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, I think that's it for us.
Yeah, are there any other questions? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Many people have heard that before. I'm just joking. If there aren't any more questions, okay. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for joining us and taking out some time. I know this is a really busy time of the semester. Some of you are ending this week. Some of you have ended and getting into finals. I remember what that was like. And also, thank you for your interest in a year of service in community colleges. I'm so glad that we are really looking at this model for community colleges, because the way that it works, I mean, it can really, really have an impact, not just on the student, but on the community itself as well. And having our community college students realize that they are the social capital of their communities. And one way to do that is through a year of service. I mean, and if they can do that and be students at the same time and not work at McDonald's, even though we need people to work at McDonald's, I love my fries.
Love McDonald's and Starbucks.
But at the same time, you know, doing something like this is a resume builder. It really is, and it can really put our community college students ahead of the pack, so to speak, in multiple ways, including help with their retention, their success rates, their completion rates, and their job perspectives.
Guys,
so thank you very much. We'll be in touch, and we'll have this video available if you'd like to share it with your financial aid people, administrators, presidents, deans, and all the such. And as always, thank you for your commitment to democracy.
Bye.